Hello everyone, welcome back. So in our appium series, today we are going to see how we can handle hybrid applications. Now what is hybrid applications, and then how do we handle the hybrid applications, and then how do we inspect those hybrid applications or the mobile applications we are going to see. So in this session, I'm going to discuss about the iOS hybrid applications. Okay, so there is a documentation from the appium side that how do you really automate the hybrid applications. Now it is very common to Android and iOS. I will not be really going into too much into the details, but let me talk about a bit that how does a hybrid application really looks like. Okay, so for that actually I'm taking the iOS simulator at this moment, and I will be taking one demo application. So if you go to the WebDriver.io GitHub account and their repos, they have given one React application. So this is the native demo app actually that they have given. They've given also a recording as well. You can go and see that, and always try to pick it up the latest version. So at this moment, because I'm taking my iOS simulator, a simple thing, you just download this zip file, extract it, and it is a .app format, and just drag it from your system to this simulator. That's it. And now how does this looks like? Now if you open it for the first time, it will look like this. Now this is your native application. Okay, now inside this native they have a web view component. And how do you know that? Like if you go here, let me put it into the middle, and if you see here, now this is where actually the web browser is embedded inside your native control or native application actually. And then anything that you see inside this, right, this is entirely your web application. Okay, so it's called as a web view. Now if you come back to this tab, now this will become your native application. Okay, so it is like you have to switch back and forth from native to web view and from web view to native and all these things. Now to better understand why exactly these implementations, why the market is going for an hybrid application, we will have another session for that, more into the theoretical part. But today we are going to see how we can really transition from native application to hybrid or vice versa by using the appium. Now this documentation, whatever it is given, you can see like to enter into a web view context. So the native and web view, that is called as a context. Two different contexts are there. You can transition either one of these. And now the native app view is nothing but the context view name is something called as native underscore app. But then the web view is not really a static web view, but it can have anything actually there. It depends on, sometimes it takes your title of your browser. Okay, so like that it takes. But okay, on the runtime we need to fetch which context it is having, and then we can switch to that context. And you can see that there are two options. One is set context, one is get context. Now how do you get the recent or the retrieve the currently available context? So you can use something called as a driver.getContext handles. It's pretty similar to get window handles in Selenium, right? So like in a sense, if I give you like if you come back to this web view, right, for the first time when you click on this and you get get context handles, you will get two different contexts. One is native app and the web view. I will show you that as well. So that is how you can retrieve it. But how do you switch it? There is an option called as set the context by using the driver.context, and you can give the context that you want to really switch to that. Okay, so we will see how we can retrieve, loop it, and all those things. Okay, so there are a couple of examples also they have given here. You can refer to this. Now if you are automating hybrid iOS applications, right, so there is a catch here. If it is WK web view or UI web view elements, then only it can identify by your appium inspector. Okay, if it is a Safari view controller elements, if your web view is using that technology, then you will not be able to handle those elements. That is one of the drawback of this. Okay, now the same thing, there are hybrid Android application has also certain conditions which we will see in our upcoming sessions. So that's pretty much it. How do you really retrieve all the context? You will switch the context. This is more in terms of appium capabilities, whether it is doable or not doable. So first thing, we have understood or we have seen an example of an hybrid application. The second thing is that we have seen what are the merits, demerits, or what we can do, the scope and out of scope by using appium. Now the third thing which we need to see is that appium inspector. So how do we inspect it? See, if it is a native application, right, you know that you can simply open the appium inspector, you can give couple of capabilities which we have seen in our previous session, and you can inspect the element as usual. Like for an instance, if it is your hybrid application, sorry, if your native application for iOS, you will see XQE element, all these things, right? But let me show you how really we can inspect by using the appium inspector. So for that, I'll just open my appium inspector. Okay, and I'm keeping my browser here, or the mobile application here, launched here. Now I will be going to the capabilities, right, or the appium capabilities. So I have already mentioned here. Let me quickly recap this one. So 16.2 is my iOS version on my simulator, whatever the iOS I have, and this is the name of my device. Actually, you can get it. I will provide the link as well. We have discussed extensively about these things. And then the automation name is XQE test. The platform name is iOS. Appium no reset true, so it will not install that. And this is my bundle ID. Okay, we have already discussed about how to retrieve the bundle ID of the specific application that you are going to automate it. Now there is one more capability I have added, that is appium : native web screenshot equal to true. So this is basically when you are taking any kind of a web view screenshots, that time it is required, but it is very optional, so you need not to worry about that. Fine, so I will start this session. Now there is a catch actually. So if you haven't really run your appium, right, like my appium is running here, I'll show you this. So let's say that I don't have the appium server running. I'll just close it real quick, and then I will start session. And you can see there is one error it is saying that could not connect to server. Now this is because I'm using the appium 2.0 actually here. Now this appium inspector is a dedicated appium inspector which recently launched, right? I mean, it is already been couple of months, but then if you are using appium 2.0, then you have to have the appium inspector separately installed. We have already discussed about those things. So now let me run this appium. I have installed the appium 2.0 by using the npm command. And now the appium server is running. And one more thing, you have to make sure that the appium iOS driver has to be installed. You can see that my XQE test, that is nothing but the appium XQE test or appium iOS driver is already installed. That is also another appium command. Okay, fine. Now I should be able to start this session for this particular application. Okay, and if I click on this, I can, as usual, I can simply inspect these elements. You can see accessibility ID or predicate strings, name, label, visible equal to true, anything that you can get it, you will get it here. Okay, now if I go to this login, and you can see that login information is coming. Let me navigate to here, refresh this one. And if I click on this, I can even get the input and everything. Now let me go back to this web view, click on this and refresh this one. Okay, and click on this one, and you can see that the accessibility ID is web view. There is no issues with that. But if I go inside this, right, you can see that this is a web view, but I'm getting the XQE element. Now, when there is a web view, right, the web view components should not be using the XQE element. This is simply just giving an arbitrary, which is not always true actually. Sometimes it will not even go into very detailed one, because there might be some issues here. Like if I go to this and refresh it, So sometimes you will not even able to identify that. That is because it is a web view actually. So you need to first switch to a web view and then you need to inspect the element. Now that is the catch actually here when you are using the appium inspector. Okay, so sometimes like you want to really click on this actually get started, and you will see the get started is not really coming here because it is inside a web view. So how do you really tackle this one? So for this, you have to click on this view. Now you can see in this appium inspector, there are two views. One is native app mode. It means that when you are in this mode, right, in the appium inspector, you will only able to properly identify the native controls only. But to access into this web view, I mean, you must be knowing actually in your application where exactly the web view is coming, at what time it is triggering. Probably you need to have those understanding. Okay, so I will switch to this web hybrid view actually, and you can see web or hybrid app mode actually. So when you click it, it will take some time and it will load properly the web view components. Okay. And now if I highlight something, right, and still you can see that it is not really coming. It's going into the XQ element. The reason is that you will see even in hybrid selection, right, there is one drop down here. You can see native app, and it is also giving the current context. So which is actually we kind of got it right, like to get that retrieve all currently available contexts. Now on this screen I have two contexts. This is my native mode, this is my web view mode. That is why it is giving. I will be switching here, and now all these XQ elements will literally convert into web view. You can see body, div, footer. These are nothing but the web view, right, or your web browser DOM actually, the HTML DOM. Now I can freely go and click on anything, and you can see these particular things are coming. You can see href is coming. I'll prove this one. Now see this particular view, right, the web view, whatever this content is there, this is actually the WebDriver.io website. I'll show you that, WebDriver.io, and you will see this one. Now let me go to the mobile mode, and it should exactly look like the same thing. You can see, I mean, this is dark mode, but you can make it as a light mode as well. You can see now it is pretty similar to that, whatever you are getting. So either you can use the appium inspector by moving into the web view mode, and you can use it. See, sometimes even the appium inspector is also giving a kind of caution that you shouldn't be always relying this appium inspector actually. You can see using web view inspector in appium desktop is less accurate than retrieving the DOM elements by using the dev tools of Chrome or Safari, means which I'm doing now. Okay, so it is always recommended, if you are going to automate anything, don't rely on the appium inspector. Rather, you can simply go to the mobile mode of this, or if you are using a real device instead of this simulator, you can use the remote debug property, which we have already seen. Like you can open any of the web browser view into your mobile browser. See, this is desktop browser, I'm converting to a mobile browser mode. But you can even access this particular URL in your browser, Safari browser, let's say, in your iOS. And then this real device, you take a real device, an iPhone, open the Safari, use the, launch this WebDriver.io, connect it with your USB cable with your Mac laptop, and you can do the remote debugging. We have already discussed this one in one of our session. Now let me make sure that I will inspect the get started button, and I will click on that. Now for this I will be using the selector hub, and here now if you see that there is this href is there, right? So I can use this href. So I'll just click here and I will make it as a CSS selector. Okay, and you can see that peculiarly it is using 4 different elements are matching. Even bottom also there is some buttons are there. You can see getting started, but I want to use this button only. This button only. Now if you see parent to this button, right, there is one div element is there, and that class name is this one. Now I'll just take this one, and for class I can use this one. And if you go for this, okay, so there was some copy paste mistake was there. Now you can see class I'm using this one, and also the href. So you will see only one entry. So I can even identify here. So either you can use the appium inspector by going into the WebDriver IO, or like whatever it is there. Like as I told, this web view is not always constant actually. Depending on what kind of web view or what kind of browsers they are using, based on that you will be getting this one. Okay, fine then. So now this is how you can really inspect your hybrid applications by using appium inspector. Now let me get into the code to automate that flow. Now for this, actually I have already predetermined the XQE test options. These are very straightforward. You can see anything that I have put into my appium inspector as my capabilities, I have kept it here. And now new iOS driver, and I'm keeping these options. This one already we discussed in our previous sessions, so I'm not going to repeat that. So now let me automate that. So whenever you first launch this particular mobile app, right, it will be in this view. After that you need to click on this web view. Now let me take it this one to the native app first, so that I can get the web views locator. Click on this web view and you can see there is an accessibility ID is present, and it is always recommended to take the accessibility ID if it is there. And I will use the appium by, because I'm using the latest appium, that is 8.3.0, and I will say accessibility ID, and I will put this one and dot click. Okay, now let's do one thing actually. Now before I'm clicking this one, what is the context? We want to see that. So for this I will be using driver.getContext. We have already discussed from the appium documentation, right? So this will always give me the recent recent native context. So I'll just put like this. And okay, so now here let me print another thing. Now you can get all the handles also here. So handles, and you will say driver dot get context handles. You will see whether it is really only the native context before clicking this web view, or is it holding the two different contexts that we are expecting. That also we can see here. Okay, fine. Now after clicking again, I'm trying to do the same thing. Okay, so for that actually what I'm going to do, I'll just do like this, and I will come back here, and at this moment I'll say that after click web view, and before to this let me just give some thread dot sleep. Okay, fine. So now after clicking on the web view and then current context, and after that I'm getting the entire handles, how many handles are there or the contexts are there, and then I will be actually capturing them. So I will put setup for string, because I will tell you why am I taking that driver dot get context handles. The reason I'm taking set, if you see that the return type is setup string. And now here after I have clicked on this web view dot click, right, I will be switching to this particular context. Now if you go to this, right, this is very long one, and I don't know, it is not always web view. Keep that in mind. So for this I don't want to really hard code to switch to that static one, but what I'm going to do, I will use this concept handles dot to array of 1. 1 means my second index. So there I want to really switch that, and here I will be casting to this string. And if you want to really loop these handles and print individually, you will already see into this documentation they have specified this for loop. You can see that. Okay, simple one only, but because I have only two contexts, one is native and the web view, I'm taking a hardcode context view here. Fine. Now after this what am I going to do? If I go to this, then I need to click on this get started, right, and we have already identified this button. So I will simply copy this one, and now because I'm into the web view, we are on web view. Okay, now here I can use the simple driver dot find element, and I will use the CSS selector here, and I will be printing that entire one, and I will say dot click. Okay, so that it will go to my if I open my simulator, it will go to this view. Actually this is what I'm expecting. So here what I'm going to do, I'll do a small change here. So if you see this, after click on the web view, I will do this after switching actually. So I will say that after switch web view, the current context I want to print it. So what it is doing first, it is first capturing the default content actually, that one. Okay, driver.getContext. Then it is capturing the array, or if there are multiple contexts are available. By this time, it would be only the native only, I'm sure. Now after that, I'm clicking on this web view button. As soon as I'm clicking on the web view button, right, I should be getting two contexts. Okay, that is what I'm capturing into a set. And after that, I'm switching to the web view and I'm printing that is it really switched or not. That is what I'm trying to do. Let's do one thing. I'll just give a thread.sleep of 1 second actually here. Sometimes it might not go. And it should give me the web view name. After that, I'm going and clicking on that get started button, which we have already identified using the Chrome browser window, or you can even use Safari desktop browser. I'm waiting for 2 seconds and closing my app. Okay, so now let's run this and open the simulator side by side. And you can see the getting started button got clicked. It waited for 2 seconds and it is closed. Even what you can do, you know, if you go to this appium inspector, you can even, so once you have finished your testing into this web view, right, you can even come back to the native app view also. You can see this native app, and I will click on this login for now. Let's say that I'm copying this one. I'll do like vice versa as well. So after finishing this getting started button, right, I want to again switch back to my native context. Now native context is always static. You need not to worry about that, like how we have taken here this handles dot to array, right? No need to really do that because it is always static only. After switching to that, now here whenever I'm doing appium driver.find element, here I will be using appium by dot accessibility id, and this is actually login dot click. I will do this one after moving to this native context. After that, I'm clicking on this. You can see that here, and if I go here, actually it won't refresh for me because this what you call session is already gone. And once you go to this login, right, I can click on this email, and this is also my native context only. That's why I can, as usual, once I navigate to this, right, I can as usual do this email. I have that email ID, what do you call that email ID is this email box is locator also. I can use that here. So I will put this driver.find element appium by accessibility, and that is input hyphen email, and this is not a click event, but rather than I will do a send case, and I can print something here. Let's say that I'm just printing something, and then I'm waiting again for some time. This is just for demo purpose only. I'm using these many thread.slips, but you shouldn't be using that. So now I'll kill this app. So now it will first go from native context to web view, from web view to native context, to do some testing and come out of the test case. Let's do that. Okay, now it should switch to the web view. Click on the get started. Yes, now it should come out of that and clicked on the login, and you can see that it printed the value as well, whatever I wanted, and then it quit the application and it should pass my test case. So that is how you can automate actually different things. Okay, so yeah, so I think that is pretty much it for iOS, and then just keep it in mind what kind of controls or what kind of elements that you can really automate. It should be WK web view or UI web view only. And if you want to understand more, you can just talk to your developers. If your real-time application is not able to identify by appium inspector, or you are not able to automate, then you need to make sure that Either one of these options should have used by your developers. If it is a Safari view controller, then you cannot use that, or you cannot automate the hybrid iOS applications. See, now there is one thing though I want to inform actually. Now if you go to this, right, this web view context, you will see that this is a predefined. It means that within the native app they have rendered the web view component. Okay, now inside this is purely HTML DOM, like whatever you are seeing into this desktop browser. Sometimes what happens, let's say that I'm into this login. Now this is completely your what you call the native view, right? Let's say that I'm signing up. Sometimes what happens, whenever you click on sign up link, right, it might navigate to your web view, web browser directly. Like let's say that you are into this login, you are clicking on this sign up. Now this directly navigate to your Safari view sometimes. Okay, at that moment also you shouldn't be restricting. How I am into this view, right? Even though it is navigating from this app, out of this app and going into the browser window, still you need not to worry about that. You can simply go as usual way only, whatever I told. So there are two ways that you can navigate the app behaviors. Within the app there would be like a web view, or it can even navigate to your browser window also. In any of the cases, this concept, whichever this logic which I am using to switch context, it is applicable. Okay, so this is regarding iOS. Now in Android would be pretty similar to this. There is not much difference, but definitely in our upcoming sessions we will see the Android hybrid application handling as well. Hope this session is useful. Stay tuned and do subscribe to this YouTube channel. Thank you for watching.